It's time for the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. Powerful and liberating business strategies you can start in 5 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, Dean Soto.
Hey, this is Dean Soto, founder of FreedomIn5Minutes.com, and we're here again with another Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast episode. Today's topic is this: Think Like a Fish with Adam King. That and more coming up. Cool. So it's so good to be here again with the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. And this guest that we have right now, I'm actually a client of this guest. And you're probably thinking, like, with the title, "Think Like a Fish." What is that? Why would I want to think like a fish? It's kind of that's a weird way of putting it. But this guy has been absolutely tremendously impactful in my business. In fact, the reason why, if you go to freedomin5minutes.com, you see everything is based around Freedom in 5 Minutes. Everything has a singular purpose. It has a purpose of adding tremendous value. And it's just, my business went from being all over the place to very, very, very focused because of this person. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Adam King. How's it going, my man?
Dean, thank you so much. I'm humbled very much by that introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. You changed the trajectory of my business massively, and we'll talk about that later. But first and foremost, what the heck do you mean by think like a fish? And what is the whole idea about that kind of concept?
Well, before I dive into that, I'll just sort of point out that you're only as good as the subject you're working with, Dean. So, you've got to take an awful lot of credit for what you've done and achieved. So, kudos there. But when it comes to the whole think like a fish thing, essentially I've been trying to explain marketing to people for years, and time again, I came back to using this whole fishing analogy. And back when I first started this whole thing, my business actually started as a bit of a hobby blog, and I called it Think Like a Fish, and that's how it started. And the whole metaphor is, it's really the most successful fishermen in the world. They're not successful because they've got the best equipment. They're not the best, they're not successful because they can afford all this fancy gear. They're successful because they know what the fish want. They studied the fish. They know exactly what type of fish they're going for. So they can use the right bait. They can go where they are. They know where they're hungry, and therefore they know when they're most likely to bite. Whereas every other fisherman spends most of their time reading magazines and trying to sort of pick out the latest shiny object that is going to magically create the ability to catch all these fish. They're thinking like the fish. And I kind of turn that round and talk about marketing. It's a similar thing when it comes to attracting clients for your business. Your clients don't care about you or your business. They care about themselves, and they care about the problems that they're facing that has manifested itself to the degree where they're looking for a solution. And your marketing is there to communicate that you understand what their problem is. You understand what they're going through. It's okay that they're going through it because you've seen it before. You've developed a solution, and you're able to use your marketing to sort of guide them on that journey, almost of self-discovery, to the point where they'll either realize you are the best solution, or maybe they'll realize that you're not the best solution, but that's okay. It just means that they're not the right kind of client for you and your business. And so that's really where the whole fishing thing come from. And some people find it endearing. Some people find it a little bit weird, but I think by the end of the explanation, a lot of the time people understand it, even if they don't like it, but they understand the thinking behind it and why it matters when it comes to marketing.
Oh, I love that, man. And it is what literally drew me to you. I still remember to this day why I even came to your site, and I was like, you know what, I want to kind of work with this guy, was because I was looking on the ClickFunnels marketplace for consultants, and a lot of the other consultants were, they'd say, oh, we're 2 comma club, this and that, and we did all this and we did all that. But when you go to your site, it's all about that whole concept of thinking like a fish. And so I went to your site and I'm looking at it going, yeah, that'd be kind of cool if I knew exactly where to find my clients, how to communicate with them, and deliver what, for my business at least, requires a lot of conversion of mindset, because it's something that's brand new out there that is literally just developed. And these other guys didn't give me the confidence. They did great things, but when I went to your site and saw what you were doing, it really helped. And then one of the things that I noticed, which I'd love for you to touch on a little bit, is that it's these little baby steps. I think this guy's the right guy. I think Adam King is the right guy. And so when I actually scheduled a discovery call, when I reached out, there were these little baby steps. And why do you have those kind of little baby steps, such as a master class, different little things that helped convert my mindset along the way?
Well, if I sort of give you the 30,000-foot view, what I do and what I have in my own business and what I help people create is something I call, again, using the fishing metaphor, I call it the client catching ecosystem. And essentially what that is it's, you know this in your world, you're a systems geek like me, but it's a system that essentially it brings people into your world in a systematic way, built around trust. And it doesn't insult anyone that comes into it by ramming a list of services down somebody's throat before you've even been on a first date. It simply guides them step by step. And each part of that system, that process, is simply designed to take them to the next point. It's answering questions that people will have in their mind as they go through that process. So as you say, unusually not a lot of people come to me via the ClickFunnels marketplace randomly, but that is just one of the sort of rods that I've got out there as where I'm sort of fishing and a little bit of that bait. But essentially each part of that, the first piece is it's the description. It's sort of telling people what it is, that I understand them, etc. And then it's inviting them to a call. But each step of that way, I am educating them on really that I understand their problem and that I've got a solution. But at the same time, I'm disqualifying people along the way as well, because the whole thing this is set up to do is it's not just to attract and catch clients. It's to save time for the person that's operating that system or has it within their business, because we've all been there. We've got excited by somebody's made an appointment, scheduled a call, something like that. We pick up the phone, we have a chat with them, and we realize they ain't right for me. Yep. They haven't got the budget. It's totally, they don't fit with me as an individual, that kind of thing. And you've got that awkward thing there where you don't know whether you should actually make the offer or that kind of thing, especially if you're in a situation where you haven't had this sort of system working in the background to generate you that flow, and effectively you're lacking demand. Yep. So you kind of have that moral quandary, do I try and work with this person or not? Or, I need the money, that kind of thing. It's like it takes away a lot of that, because essentially you're pre-qualifying all the way through. Somebody schedules a call. First of all, that's via an automated thing. You don't have the email tennis back and forth. You're not wasting time trying to find something that works. And then you have a series of questions which are designed. Well, the first thing it's designed to do, if somebody's not willing to fill out that application, brilliant. It means that they're not willing to follow instructions of the process that you require a client to go through, that they need to do in order to be successful with whatever it is that you do. That's brilliant. You lose people. You don't have to sit on an hour-long phone call to find that out. But second of all, you're then finding out about the business. You're finding out so much information that most people spend the first half an hour of a phone call pulling out of somebody. So you don't have to do that. And you get to then research and really think about, how can I help this person by the time you've got onto the call? So you've wasted, you haven't wasted all of that time. And second of all, you're then able to use things like videos and really prepare them to show up for the call and educate them about what you do, how you do it, what to expect, what's it going to cost. So by the time they've actually gone through that entire process and you're talking to them on the phone, I find that they're sort of 80 to 90% really decided whether they want to work with you or not. And they're just really there to see if they click and what the final points of the deal are.
Yeah, that that was the thing that with at least for me, I spent so much time with people who were not the right person. And which meant that it's two things. One, they're taking up that mental real estate of gosh, I really don't even like this guy. You have that moral, like you said, that moral quandary of should I pitch him? Should I not? You run into the what I've had happen in the past was I pitch them, they say yes, and it just is a terrible, terrible relationship and ends up being a cancellation and refund, which then is super demotivating and so on with your business. However, like with this way of going about it, the scariness is that you're not talking to as many people. So there's a little bit of a psychological barrier of, well, if I'm not talking to as many people, then it's I'm losing people or I'm losing money or things like that. Whereas once you get past that, what I found is I could literally just send a link. Whereas send a link and say, oh, if someone introduces themselves to me via referral or whatever, I can just say, hey, here's where you can sign up for a discovery call. Check out the video there. If it resonates with you, fill out the application and we'll set up a call. And that's it. I don't have to do anything else. If they fill out that application, you're right. I have all of this information on them. If they don't, then it wasn't a good fit. It's not that big of a deal, and I can have that space to focus on people who actually are my customers, which is something that I never had before, which is really cool. Seems counterintuitive, but it's helped out a lot in my business.
And it also means that the people you do talk to, you actually get to focus on them and actually give them value. Because you're not really selling when you get on the phone because they know everything that you do. You've educated them about the problem they're experiencing. They understand that they've got that problem. Otherwise, they wouldn't have scheduled that call.
Yep.
You've taken them through the solution that you offer. You've made it clear how it works, the reason why it works. You've given an example of what the pricing is and all that kind of thing. So you don't have to go through all that. You've handled a lot of the objections up front. And so as the person taking the call, you're not sat there thinking, right, what's he going to say next? Is he going to sort of bring up, then he can, and yes, you get the odd objection and stuff, but it's not like it was before where you have to suddenly, go to a list of, right, okay, they said they've got to speak to their spouse. So this is the objection that I have to, it's none of that. It's literally, you're focused on that person. You're finding out about their business, their situation, what they want to achieve, what they, where they're trying to go, what they've done that doesn't work. And really why they are at the point now, why they think that the solution that they've been presented is the right thing for them.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing that I noticed too is that it gives me a lot. It's going to sound weird, but it gives me a lot of power because I've had a number of clients who have filled out the questionnaire, and they say. So in my copy, I always say, hey, if you're working 40 hours or more a week, then we should talk. That's kind of the thing. If not, then it's probably not right for you. So in the questionnaire, I've had 2 people write that they only work 10 hours a week. And one of those people, we got on a call, and it was almost immediately, that was my first question. I said, well, you're working 10 hours a week. That's pretty awesome. Why are we on this call? And it did a little nicer than that, but it put them in a place where they would say, oh, well, it's 10 hours a week on this stuff, but I have 40, 50 hours a week over here. So now like the pain is coming out. And so it starts off the call either where I'm calling them out on what they put in because it's way less than 40 hours a week, or if they are 40 hours a week or more, I can say, hey, you're working 40 hours a week. Let's talk about that. It puts you in a really, really good position for sales. And I don't know if that was done on purpose, but it definitely, because I copied everything on your roadmap that you gave me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's an important thing to sort of understand as well, because when you work in the sort of industries that we typically work in, and the kind of industries that my clients work in, they're service professionals. They provide a service based on their expertise, their skills, their knowledge, and a lot of the time that's not cheap. So there's a lot of trust involved, and you're having to fill a dual role when you're also the one doing the selling and the pitching. And there's a very different perception from someone who is a salesperson to who's that fabled trusted advisor. And so what this allows you to actually do is never be the salesperson, but always show up on the trusted advisor. Because as soon as that if they become a client and that relationship shifts, all of a sudden they need to trust the advice that you've given that person to make the decision to become a client. And that doesn't always work, because they think that especially if you've applied some of these Wolf of Wall Street, ABC, always be closing sort of tactics on someone, and it's got them over the line, but they feel a little bit icky afterwards. I always felt icky doing it if I had to, and you read books and you think that's the thing to do, but hey, human. But this then allows you to be that trust. You're showing up as a leader, as somebody that is there to really tell them what they need to know. Sometimes I sort of joke in my industry, sometimes my biggest role is to actually save my clients from themselves. And that's the same with a lot of service providers, because they have the knowledge, the expertise, and you're not there to prescribe the thing that you do, because ironically, that's what I call a lot of people that work in marketing in my industry. I kind of refer to them as marketing hammers, that they're very specialized and they're very good in a particular area. And I include myself in this, so it's not like I'm immune or anything different or special, but because they're very skilled in a particular area, they view every single marketing problem as a nail. And so therefore, that problem is solved with a hammer, which is what they sell. That's what it is. And I think that can be the case for a lot of industries out there. But now you have something like this, you don't have that pressure to try and hammer everything that you think is a nail. You actually have the ability to really find out if the person in front of you is a nail, to use another metaphor that I'm really fond of using. But it just allows you to show up differently, to be that leader, to really actually do what I think selling is actually there to do, and it's to serve someone and actually tell them if it's not right.
Yeah.
But you can only do that when you've created enough demand to have the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what something like a system can do. It's what I know you help a lot of people with do. It's sort of filling that pipeline, and making sure that you're not in that situation where you've got one appointment on your calendar for the month and you're thinking, oh,
crap.
Beep.
Yep.
And that's what it's there to do. And a lot of it all comes down, you sort of say the word power. I like to use the word influence or authority. And that's what you're ultimately always trying to create within this ecosystem. The whole ecosystem, it's not necessarily the tools or the things that go into it. It's everything that you touch. So it's all the people that are a part of it. Now that is your clients, it's your prospects, it's your leads, your opt-ins, whatever you want to call, but it's also partners, potential referral sources, people that have an influential impact on the kind of people that you want to work with. And everything that you put out there, that is your ecosystem. And each one is an opportunity to bring someone into that where you have created it and you're positioned as the right person to solve a particular problem, but for the right type of person. And that's why we use what I call an authority bridge. I use a podcast. you have a podcast. I think it was by luck that you had yours previously, but we had that conversation, and you've changed the format, and now you're using it in this way, and I think it's working pretty well for you. You've done a lot of them, and it's I know you've switched a lot of systems that will feed that asset that you've created for your business, and it just opens up it opens a ton of doors. It makes it effortless to actually reach out. For a raging introvert like I am, I find this fun, having a one-on-one intimate conversation with someone. Although it's an interview, so I'm talking a lot more than I normally do, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's just totally different, because you're not showing up. I used to think that if I was prospecting or anything like that I was literally turning up and saying to someone, hey, I don't know if you need this, but I want to try and sell you something today. So do you mind if I waste your time while I figure that out?
That's how I felt too.
It was horrible for me. I hated it. Whereas now I can identify the type of client, because I know the type of people that have a specific problem that I can help solve, and I can specifically target them, and now simply reach out with a question that's around something like, hey, I have a podcast, and I think that your insight and your expertise would be massively beneficial to my listeners. I'd love to have you on to tell your story and to share your message. Would you mind? Would you fancy being a guest?
Yep.
Totally different response, and it opens the door to potential clients that you could never have before. But it also opens the door to the term influencer marketing, all that kind of thing. Many of them that can either become referral sources. You can end up doing things like joint webinars, all that sort of thing that can get you in front of their audience, which starts the whole process. There's just so many benefits to it. Ultimately, the whole thing, I say, it's a strategy that I've termed conversational relationship marketing.
I love that.
And really, I say it's based on ethics, professionalism, and just bloody good manners. That's all it is, because it's relationships.
Yep.
And in this mad, over-connected world of people that love taking pictures of their dinners and selfies and plastering them all over the social media, just the highlight reels that, quite frankly, sometimes makes me feel a bit crap about my life. It's a different way of showing up.
Yeah, I love that, because from the very onset, it was that feeling throughout the entire process. Because I think even when I was on the discovery call, you didn't even pitch me at all, to the point where I was like, yeah, just take my money. Like, because it had gotten to that point where I think the last thing in the discovery call that you had, which is actually the cool thing, was was a discovery call. You get on these quote unquote discovery calls, and it's sell. Let me see how I can sell you. Whereas it was more of talking about my business, talking about where I'm at, here's some solutions, things like that. And to later on, at the very end, it was something like, yeah, well, maybe later on we can schedule another call and maybe we'll work together or something like that. It was more of just kind of, there was no, okay, well, here's what it costs. Let's go. Boom, boom, boom. Like it was more of me having to say, yeah, you know what? Let's just move. Let's do this. And
yeah. And the salespeople listen to this have probably just been a bit sick in their mouth here when you say that.
Yeah,
it's the way I operate. And I usually start everything by saying, look, this is an exploratory conversation.
Yep.
There's nothing to buy on this call. It'll only be. It's funny because I didn't make the offer to you. I remember this. But you asked, you wanted to get going. Yeah. So it's like, well, I'm not going to waste your time by saying no. Like, I generally mean that there is nothing to buy on the call. If somebody wants to go, then obviously, I'm going to do it. Yeah. But the majority of the time, I will sort of, the only thing I will say is, right, I think that this could be a good fit for you, but I want you to think about it.
Yep.
Let's set up another call now. When can you do? and we'll walk through the, the options, how that works, and the fine details.
Yeah.
I've actually found much more success doing it that way than trying to be a one call closer that you hear bandied around and that sort of stuff, because I don't believe that anyone should be forced into a decision or feel pressured, because it's totally, it's incongruent to how I would want to be sold to.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't wish to do it to anybody else. And I use the system and the process to really nurture that process so that people feel that they actually want to buy. They don't want to be sold to, but they love to buy because it's something that they feel is right for them.
Yeah.
Because this isn't right for everyone. What I do isn't right for everyone. I know that not everybody I talk to is a nail for my hammer. And that's okay.
And it's cool because the system is set up to discover that automatically for the most part, 80, 90%. So if you could really quickly walk through the like a total overview of the system. So your system, you have the authority bridge, and then what? So the authority bridge consists of what?
So the 30,000 foot view it all starts with a roadmap, which is a really, really deep dive into who your ideal client is. There's the typical sort of demographic sort of things, male, female, age, income, job, that kind of thing. But then it's about going really, really deep and uncovering.
Before we go deep into that, like when you say deep, like when Adam says deep, it is like I don't want to say how many pages. It was a lot of pages because I don't know if you're going to go more or less or anything like that. But this was something that one of my business colleagues literally had to read 2 or 3 pages a day for a couple weeks just to get through it all. And it is all good content. It's all tailored toward my business, like all of it. And so it wasn't just like, hey, here's some fluff and send it. Like I'm still going through, just so you know, every week I have targets. I'm still going through and setting up all of these systems, and it's been a while since we've worked together. And each system that I set up is bringing me some kind of revenue or some kind of qualification, things like that. So yeah, when Adam says it's deep, it is really, really, really good. And I've had other consultants where they just give you 2 or 3 pages and say, here's your demographic, here you go, and you're off to the races. It's not like that.
Yeah, it's really trying to understand the narrative. And as we create with you create the story of your ideal client. What does their ideal day look like? How do they get started? All that kind of things, so that you can then piece that together and put it within your marketing and your message, so that when you put that out there, it's like they're reading something about themselves. They could literally be reading their average day. And so that is why that is the most critical component of anything that I do. It is the bit that nobody wants to do, but it doesn't work unless you do it. Yep. It is absolutely vital. It's not something, it's not like throw something on Facebook and retire next year. It's nothing like that. It takes work, and you actually have to research and find where people are congregating and listen out for the kind of the language that they use to describe their situation, their problem, all that kind of thing. We even interview specific clients and use things like Socratic questioning to really uncover what it is that they're saying, not just at the surface level, but really deep down. How does it feel? What is the language that they use? And then you get to, I don't write copy. I'm not a copywriter, but I can literally extract something from somebody's brain and repeat it back to them. That's what effectively we do. And then it's all about, so that's your ideal client or your client persona or whatever it is. And then you're really getting to the root after you've done that. What's the real problem that you need to solve, or you can solve, that they really want solved? What's the solution, and how do you package or position that solution that's easy to understand? has steps to it that somebody can follow and actually understand what happens at each point. We created one for you. And the name escapes me right now. The Scalable Business or something like that. Mm. And it's just got 3 parts, and it's sort of step by step, so that you can literally present a graphic to someone and say, that's what we do. That's how we do it.
Yeah, I even have
That's why I call it.
I have it on my homepage.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome. And you can utilize that in your sales process of explaining what you do.
So you can identify where on this process are you having the most trouble.
Yep.
And you can have that conversation. It's there for a reason. It's been strategically created. And then it's all about creating the assets that take someone on that journey from point A to point B, from pain to profit, from struggle to successful, whatever it is that you want to call it. And those assets that we create is your authority bridge. We do it as a podcast. You can do it as a YouTube channel. You can have an online group, LinkedIn, Facebook, something like that, if that's what you want to do. You could have it as an in-person meetup or a mastermind or something like that. There are so many ways or things that you could do with it. We just do it with a podcast because I'm not massively comfortable on video. I don't like doing that and as much. And I just find that podcasting for me and for a lot of the people I work with, it's the most comfortable way for them to create the content, because that's one of the challenges that we also solve. Content creation. You're always told you've got to create content and publish constantly and all the rest of it. Most people think, well, I've got to write, I've got to do a blog, I've got to do this. And they sit in front of a screen and go, crap. Yep. They hate doing it. So we take away that pain by saying, you don't actually need to create content in the way that you think you do, because the majority of the content will come from your guests. Yep. I do the odd solo here and there, but actually a lot of the time I repurpose a lot of the other assets. Mm-hmm. So it's like a constant stream of content that's coming out. So we have that, and then we use that as I say, the door opener. You go and find people to bring onto your podcast, and then you can have conversations afterwards, whether or not it's something that could be good for them to do business or become a partner of some description. But I always say, you don't approach this. It doesn't work if you approach this with the expectation that that's going to happen. Yeah. You have to go in thinking and expecting you're getting nothing from that other person in return for having them on as a guest. Yeah. Because that's a bit of a shitty thing to do. Yeah. That's Trojan horse, and that's not what this is. You're not sneaking into the gates while everyone's asleep and then coming out fighting. Yep. Or in this case, like pitching the hell out of someone, because that is wrong. Yep. This is just a way of opening a conversation, because that's what it's all about. I think marketing it's good marketing starts a conversation. Yeah. And good marketing keeps that conversation going. So that's how it starts. And then we have a piece of bait, which is your traditional lead magnet. Then we have, and that can be any sort of thing that you have that you've created and figured out what that is in your roadmap. And then the line, as I call it, is the content that runs through your system. Mm-hmm. It's the emails that follow up. It's really the style that you use to communicate. Yeah. We do a 10-part automated sort of follow-up sequence that goes out. But then you end up using your authority bridge as that never-ending content. Yeah. Because every time you have an episode, it's a templated structure, essentially, that has hey, this just went up on the Client Catching podcast. It's a great interview with, Fred, and this is what's in it. Why don't you go and take a look? And even if somebody doesn't listen to every single episode by seeing it in email, it's just that constant drip and reassurance and reminder that you're there.
I love that. Yeah.
And then the big piece is that masterclass, which is, as I call, the real. Mm-hmm. And that is where you ask someone to make a more considerable investment in time to really be educated about the challenge and the problem, your solution, and then you invite them to have a conversation with you. And then the last piece is it's kind of we operate a catch and release policy here at Think Like a Fish. We don't eat what we catch, and you are then essentially just using all of those assets that you have in your system as a way to generate referrals. So you can interview clients on your podcast, shine a light on them, what they do, the success that they've had with you. And everyone's had trouble getting referrals from clients.
Yep.
But if you use this as a way to interview them, they will know people like them.
Yep.
And you've shown up as a much more trusted way than, what happens with a lot of referrals, in that there's a hell of a lot of social capital invested in giving a referral, certainly for high ticket sort of services. Mm-hmm. It takes away that completely, because you're simply asking somebody to share a podcast episode.
Yep. Yep.
Or the bait that you've created, or saying, oh yeah, you should go and have a look at this masterclass. It answers a lot of the stuff that you've just told me you've got a problem with. Totally different to saying, oh, you should talk to, my financial advisor. Here's his phone number, or I'll give him your number, and you know that it's just going to be a sales call.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally different approach.
I love that. I love this. It's interesting because one thing I noticed on your site with all of this is that, and I think it's done on purpose. I would imagine everything you do is on purpose, but with the traditional sales funnel, traditional landing page, you want them to do one thing, right? That's the preach thing. You want them to opt in for the lead magnet, and then from there you take them down a journey or whatever. For you, you have the lead magnet that's up there. You have your master class. So your lead magnet being a book, you have your master class, and you have scheduling a discovery call on the same page. Why do you do that?
Because I want to meet people where they're at. Not everybody is going to be at the same stage of their journey. Some people are going to be ready to go. So I want to make sure that I have the ability to catch those people. But some people aren't. They're going to need to sort of back off and be given a bit of time to be nurtured and all that kind of stuff. So it's from an understanding, what is it, the demand pyramid, or whoever it was that said that 3% are ready to buy right now. There's a certain percentage that are going to be ready in the next 90 days. And the rest are either not going to be ready for 90 days or are never going to be ready, never going to be right at all. So you're simply trying to meet people where they're at. And each time you simply give them those options. Because, you'll have some people, and it's all about different personality types as well. Some people, type A, they're like decisive, right? Yes, I'm ready to go now. Makes sense. I don't need to think anymore. Great. Yeah. But other people are a little bit more analytical. They need to sit back. They need to think. So it just helps at every single stage along the way. I'm always asking them to do one thing, and that's to take the next step. But it's the next step that's right for them.
Yeah, because I've noticed on mine, I'll have people come into the masterclass, and I'll have people come into my lead magnet, and it's interesting because I would have never done that before. I would have only had one thing, quote unquote, and I actually had a prospect. I had a prospect that came from a referral so the referral, the referral was the boss of this prospect. It was basically his design director or whatever. And she came into the master class and watched the whole thing and was like, wow, this is amazing. Went back to her boss and said, yeah, we got to use this guy. And it was through that the boss got excited. And had I only had a scorecard up there, that person wouldn't even have cared about like my lead magnet, which was more of like a business process scorecard type thing, whereas a business owner might care about that. And,
absolutely.
And so do you find that happens a lot? Is just there's certain, like you said, there's certain people who want a discovery call, certain people who want masterclass, and just what's kind of been your observation with that compared to the traditional way of doing it?
It's very similar to what you say in that actually it depends on the person, their personality type. It also depends on their sort of level, if it's a hierarchy of business or anything like that. Because, I sort of think if somebody's ready to go, they don't want to get your lead magnet and then wait for you to nurture them over 2 weeks while you're gradually building that relationship with them and they can feel safe enough to book a call with you and all that kind of thing. No, they want to go now. So let them have that opportunity. Yeah. But there are some people that want that.
Yeah.
So let them have that opportunity too. And it's interesting because what I sort of find is that the people that will come in and what I've got is I've got a lead magnet, which is a blueprint. And then I have a video directly on that page, which I don't tell people about before they opt in, which is a mini masterclass. And it just takes them through that and then offers have that call. The people I find that schedule a call from then compared with the people that go through more of the system, more of the process, they are the type A, ready to go, decisive guys.
Yeah.
Whereas the ones that have been through it a little bit more, and I can see because it's all trackable in the system, what they've done, how they've got there and all the rest of it, they're not the type A. They can sometimes literally recite things back that they've seen through everything.
Yeah.
Oh, when you said this, like it spoke to me.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. That. And it's like, you know, that they have literally been through the whole thing, but they've needed that.
Yeah.
They've needed that to feel safe enough to have a conversation with a pesky marketer who's just going to try and sell them stuff.
Yeah, that is great, man. That is great. And I love it because it's kind of counterintuitive. Again, just like with everything that you're doing. However, it's the way it should actually be. But we've been it's like the microwave. We're so used to the microwave way of marketing and selling. And this is where it's just meeting people where they are at all times. And I love that. So this all brings me to what I like to call the 5-minute mindset shift question. The one thing that you were like, you know what, I am going to do this. And it took you maybe 5 minutes to just to make the decision. And from that, you've been able to, it's been something that's massively grown your business. So what's that 5-minute thing that if somebody else were to implement it, it could massively transform how they're doing business?
Well, it's something that, probably took maybe a little bit less than 5 minutes to make a decision that this is what I was going to do, but it took a heck of a lot longer for it to kind of form in my head. And that is, relationships are the most important thing around anything that I'm ever going to do. Life, business, anything. And the way that we as people interact online is the same as offline. And that all of the things that I see, not all of the things, but a lot of the things that I see is out there. It's like, it's about getting people into the funnel. It's numbers, it's metrics, it's clicks, it's all those sorts of things, leads, blah, 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 blah. It's as soon as I recognize that every single one of those is a human being, and that my sole aim is to create a conversation with another human being that I can have a relationship with, whether it ends up being business or whether it just ends up being a relationship that they consume my content and get benefit from it. That's my focus. And it has totally, totally changed everything I do. I don't now worry about, as I say, having to sell to someone. I don't worry about where's my next client coming from. I don't have to worry about what am I going to do this week, this month to fill my funnel. I know the only thing I have to concentrate on week in, week out, day out is starting conversations with cool and interesting people that I might be able to help and that might one day lead to a mutually beneficial arrangement that could involve some money changing hands at some point, but it might not. That's it. And I built a system around myself to help with that. And as someone who is fully diagnosed ADHD, the system part I've had to do it because it's literally set me free, saved my life in a way. But maybe that's another conversation for another day.
Oh, I love that, man. I love it. And it shows throughout all the stuff that you do. And it's cool because I get a benefit from that, because I'm even thinking of one. So there are folks who kind of will come through my funnel and super nice. I mean, we already have a relationship and so on, and I don't want to sell to them. I like, in the sense of like this one guy, my guys are asking him, hey, are you ready to move forward? Ready to move forward? It's already been twice. And I don't like being salesy. So what it allows me to do, because of this relationship, the whole model of what you've created, it allows me to say, hey, it sounds like this is not the right time. No worries. Here, what I'm going to do is here's a podcast that I think that would be helpful. Podcast episode I think would be helpful for you. And I'm just going to every week or so, I'm going to send you some podcast episodes that I think will be helpful for you. And now they're in my long-term sequence, constantly being followed up on, adding value. So maybe at some point in time we do work together, and it's not this just drop off of, okay, you didn't want to do work together, we're done,
Yeah. And you can use a lot of this stuff to do the same sort of thing, just in slightly different ways, because you're not going to have time to interview everyone you come into contact and invite them onto your podcast. So you just flip it around. You can reach out to people on, email, LinkedIn, that sort of thing. And if you're not sure, you can simply say, hey, I'm not sure if you struggle with this sort of problem, but if you do, I have a really great podcast interview that my guest and I discuss. If you'd like, I can send you a link to it. It's just being polite and asking questions. I don't know if you have this problem. If you do, and you can build relationships in that way.
Yeah.
Some will say no, some will ignore you, but a lot of people will say, oh yeah, cool. Yeah, let me have a look. And then it opens up, and then they're in your ecosystem.
Yeah.
And then it's up to them at what pace that they go. And it's just about starting a conversation, because unless you can start a conversation, nobody knows you're there.
Yep. Exactly.
It's hard to get attention, but everyone's desperate for it. But attention is fleeting. Interest lasts, but a relationship, that's what keeps you enduring.
I love it, man. I love it. So how can people work with you? How can they find you? How can they get all of this stuff that you and start building a relationship with Mr. Adam King?
Well, the easiest thing to do, I practice what I preach when it comes to systems and doing things. And that is, I encourage everyone to go to, I've set up a page on my website specifically for your listeners. It's thinklikeafish.co.uk/freedom5, and that's the number 5. And what you'll see there is it's a range. I know, as you say, everyone says that you should have one call to action on a page and all the rest of it. That's not my style. I want people to see what is on that page and make a decision of what they think is going to be of the biggest benefit. You can get a copy of my book that I have there. You can register for the masterclass, or there's just some free training there that you don't have to opt in for. You don't have to do anything. You can just watch it and see how I operate, how my mind works, the kind of things that I help people do. And then it's up to you to take the next step. You can listen to the podcast, you can join the Facebook group, all that sort of stuff. But really, it's there to give a little bit, see if people like me, what I do, and go from there.
Oh, I love it. So go check out thinklikeafish.co.uk/freedom5. So that's freedom, just freedom 5, like no dashes or anything like that.
That's right.
Sweet.
No, freedom and the number 5.
Freedom and the number 5. Go check that out. You'll love his stuff. I mean, like, it's the cool thing is that this is literally you could take all of his training and do it yourself. That's how much like he gives. And the cool thing is that he actually cares. Like he is truly one of the only, I have had business relationships with people who I've hired as consultants for marketing, and he is literally the only one who has, for what the money that changed hands, I made out like 10 times what he actually had me what he actually charged me. Like I can't tell you enough how much he massively changed my business and put me on a trajectory where we're going to have some massive gains in this next year or two. So go check that out. thinklikeafish.co.uk/freedom and the number 5. So thanks so much for being on, Adam. I appreciate it, man.
No, I appreciate it. And those kind of words. It's a shame that there's an entire ocean between us. I give you a big man hug for that. So I do appreciate it.
No worries, man. No worries. But yeah, guys, go check him out. Thinklikeafish.co.uk is just all of his stuff is awesome. And so that's the end of the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. And hopefully we'll have Adam on again when he's not so busy. I know you're building out new systems and things like that. And I'd love to catch up in the next few months and share any new things that you have. So all that being said, guys, I will see you guys on the next Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast episode. This is your host, Dean Soto, with the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast. Now, head over to www.freedomin5minutes.com and register for our free masterclass and discover how to start systemizing and automating your entire business 5 minutes at a time. We'll see you next time on the Freedom in 5 Minutes podcast.